is not a great time in terms of the history of the world to be sitting on a big secret. I'm not, just so you know. Yeah. It's the information age. Information is flowing around us invisibly, mostly, all the time. From cell phone to satellite, satellite to laptop, there are cameras in space. There's Google Glass, you know, Google Glass. It's a pair of glasses frames with a voice-controlled camera and a tiny computer built into them. With those, you can record people or take pictures of things without making it obvious by holding up your cell phone and assuming that pose we get, you know, when you're about to click a picture. Right now, the little camera and the computer on the Google Glass are easily seen, but how long before they get too small to detect, right? Probably not very long. People who've grown up in the information age, young people, are more comfortable with these kinds of things than their elders. They have more fluid boundaries. They've grown up not only around information, but reality television. Reality television. As a consequence, they tend to share information from their private lives pretty freely, and that freaks out the older folks. And by older, I mean like 32. That's how old I was several years ago when my tween children first got on Facebook and posted close-ups of themselves and casual comments. And whenever I would start in on my concerns about privacy and appropriateness, I was informed that I'm old and that everyone's doing the same thing these days. Well, they still got in trouble sometimes, but you know, they had a point about one thing. Society's expectations around privacy are changing. They're changing, and with them, so must our expectations around secrecy. Now, the two are not the same thing. They sometimes get conflated. Privacy sometimes, but does not always, involve secrecy. The ethicist Cicely Bach defines privacy as a condition of being protected from unwanted access by others, either physical access, personal information, or attention. Privacy is that sense that you have some kind of a protected personal domain. A private conversation between two people in a restaurant is not necessarily a secret conversation, right? That makes sense. It's personal because they don't expect anyone to barge in and eavesdrop, but they aren't trying to hide it. With secrecy, though, we are trying to hide something. To consider something a secret means you already know that there's some kind of a conflict between what you, the secret holder, are hiding and what others would think about that. Maybe there would even be a scandal if they knew. With privacy, it's different. Something that's private wouldn't necessarily cause a scandal or a conflict. Now, we humans have an interesting relationship with privacy, secrecy, and the desire to know things. On the one hand, we do desire to know things. We're curious critters. That's how we arrived at the information age. Not only that, but we long to know each other and to be known. The worst kind of loneliness is the kind we can experience in a crowd, where no one knows you or seems to care, and where you don't know anyone. And we can also experience that kind of loneliness when people think they know us, when they think they know something about us, but they don't. Gossip, which is inappropriate sharing of secret or private information, gets in the way of understanding, because the people who hear it already think they know something about you, don't they? If it's about you. They think they know about you or something about you before you've had a chance to reveal anything. Stereotypes work the same way. They block knowing and understanding by making people think they already know something. They are imposter information, and they keep us from being known. And we all want to be known authentically. At the same time, though, we are also unknowable. Each of us is like a private universe with constellations of memories, thoughts, perceptions, and feelings. No one can be known completely. You're a private universe so vast that no one can explore the whole thing. Not even your own conscious mind can see it all. You surprise yourself sometimes, don't you? for the good or for the bad. So there's a way in which we are all secrets to each other and even to ourselves, not because of intentional concealment, but because we are unknowable. That might be another definition of secret. Did I cut out? We're doing our best in this new setup. There we go. So that might be another definition of secret, something that is unknowable. Unknowable secrets are the ones we also call mystery. Here at church, we often refer to God or ultimate reality as mystery, and that's a way of acknowledging that as unknowable as the far reaches of our private universes are, the real universe must be even more amazing and mysterious. I don't know. It'll probably be fine. I'm still standing vertically. As unknowable as our internal universes are, the real universe must be even more amazing, mysterious, secret, and beyond our reach. So we each long to be known. We are each, to some degree, unknowable. There's mystery within us, and both of those things are important to human identity. By having control over our private sphere, by using our own power to reveal what we want to, we have some control over who we are to others, who we are in a social sense. And so in this way, privacy is fundamental to human identity. And sometimes privacy requires that we intentionally conceal something. A secret diary that you stash away in a hiding place would be one example. So privacy sometimes requires secrecy, but not always. On the other hand, deception always does. It always requires secrecy. That's why secrecy in general has such a bad rap. Deception is when you're secretive about something that cannot be reasonably considered private. And I'm not talking about planning a surprise party. I'm talking about a deception in which you know that revealing your secret would cause some conflict or scandal. Secrecy and deception, privacy and knowing are such fascinating and important parts of being human that we've been telling stories about them for a long time now, myths and legends. Some of them are about the danger of uncovering what should have remained hidden, like the Greek myth of the first woman on earth, Pandora. She's given a box from the gods who tell her to never open it. She disobeys, releasing all the evil and suffering that still plague the earth today. Sounds kind of similar to the story of Eve and the serpent. Disobedient women figure prominently in those old myths. We'll talk about that some other time. Other stories involve a secret that's only dangerous when it remains hidden. In the German fairy tale, Rumpelstiltskin, a young woman breaks an imp's claim on her firstborn child by guessing his secret name. And sometimes guessing the secret password or an answer to a riddle opens a door or breaks a spell. Those secrets were only problematic when they were hidden. Similarly, when we have deceived ourselves or others about our own behavior because revealing it would make us look bad or stir up shame or would conflict with our overly optimistic self-image, those secrets can also be problematic. That kind of secret can weigh us down, prevent us from atonement, can even lead us to give up hope for ourselves, such that we might find ourselves doing even more of the kinds of things that we would want to keep secret. That's why the practice of confession can be so powerful, as in the reading this morning. Whether you confess to a friend, a therapist, a minister, or just starting with your own self, uncovering that kind of personal secret can open a door within you through which lies the way to peace and freedom. So privacy and secrecy are different. Privacy is a basic human need, and some secrets are justifiable, while others are harmful. Now, where does Edward Snowden fall in all of this? You know, Edward Snowden, he's the guy who leaked classified information about the National Security Administration, the NSA, and hid first in Hong Kong, then in the Moscow airport, and now somewhere in Russia, I think. His leak revealed that the NSA was collecting data about Americans' phone calls, not only in cases where they had reason to suspect something fishy was going on, but in all cases, all phone calls, all collected into a database that could later be used with filters to sort out people with certain affiliations or contacts. Now, I suspect that for many people, not all of them, but for many people under 40 who were born after the McCarthy era and who have been told for 20 years now, since cell phones and the internet first caught on, that there's no real privacy anymore, this revelation doesn't sound that much like a revelation at all. We already thought there was no privacy. It seems inevitable. So why did Snowden get so fired up about it? Why did it bother him enough that he exposed classified documents? He'll spend the rest of his life in exile if he's lucky, or in prison if he isn't. Well, privacy is power. In a democracy, the power is supposed to be with the people, not with the government. When there are not enough checks and balances on the government's intrusions into our privacy, that balance gets skewed. And there were not enough checks and balances in this case, because the government's violation of our privacy was itself a secret. Since 9/11, many of the government's processes in regard to national security have been kept under wraps. Today's New York Times has a story about a little-known filmmaker named Laura Poitras, who ended up personally experiencing the effect of that. Her trouble began when she made a documentary film about the effect of the Iraq War on Iraqi citizens. You may have heard of the film, My Country, My Country. It was nominated for an Oscar in 2006. In the process of making it, though, Poitras found herself facing some scary accusations. One day, while she was filming from a rooftop in Iraq, an insurgent attack took place, and she caught the whole thing on camera. A couple of National Guard members who saw her wrote it up in a report. They assumed she must have known the attack was imminent and went up on the roof specifically to film it. Never mind that there were many attacks occurring at that time, so many that it would have been hard for a reporter in that neighborhood not to be near one when it happened. But not long after that, Poitras found that she had been marked for extra scrutiny whenever traveling through airports. She was detained in New Jersey on her way to Israel, then held for 2 hours before being allowed to board her return flight to the US. Another time, on her way home from Bosnia, she was called out over the Vienna airport loudspeaker, put in a van, and transported to another part of the facility where her bags were searched. A security officer there informed her that the US had listed her as a very high-threat traveler. No one had ever informed her of this before, or told her why, nor had she been charged with anything. She's now been detained over 40 times. She's been told that any refusal to answer questions is suspicious, and that she's not entitled to a lawyer because the detentions happen in parts of airports considered to be international border crossings. The US government says that our usual constitutional rights do not apply there. Eventually, officers prohibited her from taking any notes during her detentions. They said she might use her pen as a weapon. She offered to use a crayon, and they said no. I guess they aren't afraid of a physical attack by Poitras after all, but they are right to worry about her powers of documentation, because after all those detentions, Poitras got worried that the government might also be monitoring her communications. Now, there was no way for her to know for sure, because, as we now all know, the government prohibits telephone and internet companies from telling anyone who is being monitored. So, Poitras began making another film, one about government surveillance. One of the people she interviewed was a former top NSA official, William Binney. He had publicly accused the agency of illegal surveillance. One day in 2007, while he was in the shower, FBI agents burst into his house with guns pointed at his family, took his computers, disks, and personal records, and they still haven't given them back 6 years later. But they haven't charged him with any crime either. Poitras was onto something. And that's how Edward Snowden, who also worked at the NSA, heard about Laura Poitras. That's why he knew he could count on her to publish the classified documents he wanted to leak. So she is the one he gave them to. In her book, Secrets, Cicely Bach goes into some of the dangers of secrecy within governments. Secrecy is necessary for some government functions, she concedes. National security is a legitimate concern. But without checks and balances, secrecy becomes fertile ground for